Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight we're going to look at the JPA one-to-one mapping, and we're going to look at the standard way to map two different entities to each other. And there are actually three different ways to do it. We can actually do it with the helper table in between. We can also do it with something where we're actually reusing the IDs for both entities. I'll only show you the standard way in this video right here. I'll create another video where I'll show you the other ways to do it, because there is a lot of stuff to go through. This is made for if you are quite new to JPA, or maybe you have tried it so you know something but you don't know how to actually implement it with Spring Boot, then this video is definitely something for you. I have a spaceship, so this is my table or entity. I have an entity named spaceship, and the spaceship head has some fuel. It has a type. Actually, this is just I changed this to description fuel, and then max speed. So that is my spaceship, and then my spaceship it can have exactly one captain. So that means that this relation right here between the spaceship is actually called a one-to-one. And of course, that could also be, you could also say that the spaceship could actually fly maybe without a captain. If the captain maybe used an escape pod or something like that, then it would actually be 1-0. When you say 1-1, then you know that it actually could be 1-0. You do not specify that you do not specify the 0. So 1-1 is the same as 1-0 and 1-1. Just so you know that is the first step. And as you can see right here, I've prepared some more examples right here. That's because I also want to go through one to many, and also many to many. But that is for other videos. That's not for this video right here. Let us jump right into some technology, into some coding. I've created this project. This is a default Spring Boot project. So I've created this by pressing File, New Project, like this. I chose Java, Maven, and it is compliant with Java 17, but it is actually JDK 18 that I'm using. Jar always makes jar, no, don't make war. I got a question on my YouTube channel. Could I please show how to create a war? And I definitely said no. You should not use war. You should create an executable jar instead. I ticked off Lombok right here, and I ticked off Spring Data. I found the H2 database driver, because then the database is just spun up in memory, and that's exactly what we want. And I also added the web module right here. So I had these four modules right there: Lombok, Spring Data, JPA, H2, and also web. And then I pressed create, and then I ended up with this project right here. And then I just started creating classes, because first of all I wanted my spaceship, and I've prefixed all of these with standard. Actually, I forgot to prefix this one right here. So let me just do that. Standard. So I prefixed all of these classes with standard, because there's one more here. Sorry, standard. Because then this is the standard way of actually creating a one-to-one mapping. This is the normal way, if you will. This is the most used way to actually map a one-to-one relationship. Usually, you would choose one of the entities to point to the other entity, but not the other way around. And that's why I say this is a standard way. Of course, you can also choose that both of these entities should point to each other, or you can choose that to have a table in between. In this situation, right here, we want the captain. We want the captain to point to the spaceship, but we do not want the spaceship to point to the captain. And that is done with annotations with JPA, exactly like this. You usually start up with the entity that actually points to the other entity. So that means that you would actually start with creating your mapping here. Of course, the class needs to exist. So first of all, you need to create. You need to have your entity right there, and this is a spaceship right here, and it has and we have just named this property ship. Here we need to annotate this with @one-to-one. If we don't annotate this with any relationship, then we get an error, because JPA is so smart that it knows that we cannot create something named standard spaceship as as a column in the table. So we need to say that this is because we're actually creating a relation right here. And then we say something else, and this is the join column. This is a very important notation also. So we need to say what is the name of the column that we want to point to the other entity. In this situation right here, I want to have a ship underscore ID, and this is because I know that H2 actually uses underscores whenever there's something, whenever there's camel case, then it would actually automatically be converted into snake case, as it's called. So that means they will create underscores every time there's like a uppercase character. So that's why I say ship underscore ID, and that's why I don't write something else right there. So then we have a referenced column name. So that is what is the ID, what is it that we're pointing to? And that is we're pointing to the ID column of the spaceship. So let us go look inside the spaceship right here. Here we can see that the ID column of the spaceship actually is named ID. So that is why I can say that the name is actually also ID of the column. So that's quite cool. Then of course I want to be able to actually fetch the captain for the spaceship. This means that if I have a captain, then I want to fetch. If I have a spaceship, then I want to be able to fetch the captain also, and I can do that by annotating. Actually, let me just press enter a couple of times, because the other annotations I will explain to you why we have those on. But the one you actually only need, the only one you need is need the one-to-one, and then you need to tell JPA, Java Persistence Object Annotation. You need to tell it that this right here is mapped by the other entity. This is mapped by the standard captain, and the property on that standard captain is called ship. So you need to tell JPA that you have this mapping right here, and as you probably remember, the property is named ship. That this is where the mapping actually happens. So this is how we do it. This means that inside the standard spaceship, there will be no reference. If you go down and look in the database on the table level, there will be no reference in the spaceship table to the captain, but the captain will have a link, a reference to the spaceship on the ship ID column. This is the standard way of doing this, and then let's just talk about some of the annotations that you also need to add on. Because we are using lombok, this means that if you are using a toString, and since we are annotating with add data, that means that we get the getters for free, we get the setters created automatically. We also get a nice toString representation of the object. Unfortunately, if you have two objects that actually point to each other, and if you have an automatically created toString methods on both of those, then you will end up with an infinite loop when you try to run toString on this object. That is why we need to say that it should exclude the standard captain from the toString generation of the object. So or else you would have an infinite loop whenever you try to show the object in a log, and it looks very weird. Of course, you just end up with a Stack Overflow exception. That's okay, and then you will probably know that this is the case. Then you have the one-to-one right here. Then we have JSON ignore. That's the one I want to talk about. The JSON ignore. That's because I've created a REST controller where I expose the entity. This is bad practice. You should actually not do that. It's just easier when you are creating tutorial examples like this that you actually expose the entity. You should create a DTO instead of exposing the entity. I'm exposing the entity in this demonstration because it's my demonstration and because it's easier. But what you need to do is you need to tell Jackson, which actually converts this object into JSON. You need to tell it to ignore this field right here. Do not map the captain, or else again you will get an infinite loop, because then Jackson will jump to the captain actually, and then it will say, oh, there's a reference to the ship, and then it will also start converting that into JSON, and etc. Then it will jump back to the ship, and then it will convert that into JSON, back and forward, and then you would have an infinite loop again, and then you would end up with a Stack Overflow exception at some point. So that is actually it. So we have the pointer to the spaceship right here, and we have the spaceship right here. So what do we want to do? We want to create some of these on startup, because then we can actually see how we would create these objects and how we would link them together. I have created something called a component right here. This just means that the Spring will actually create an instance of this class right here, and then it will put it in the Spring context. I'm not using this from anywhere. Create some on startup. This just means that I know that this line will be called right here at post construct. That means that when this component has been created, then this method would actually run automatically, because that is what post construct means. So that means I can actually feed it with some automatic, with some data. And now, if you have seen my liquid base video, then you will say, "Oh, this is not the way to do it. I should use liquid base." Yes, you should use liquid base, but it is much faster for demonstration purposes just to create an at post construct like this. So first, I actually create my spaceship, because we know that the captain references a spaceship, so we need to have a spaceship that is referenced, and we are creating a spaceship with the builder pattern. If you don't know the builder pattern, then it's actually like this. You get a builder, and then you set each property like this. It's much easier. It saves some line. It's much more. It's more readable than using setters instead on a new instance, or using a constructor. This is much more readable, and it's also less prone to errors, because if I add a new field, this code will still work, because the builder would just ignore the new field, and then we will get a new instance of the spaceship. The way that you activate the builder is just by using add builder like this, and it's Lombok that creates the whole builder code, so you don't need to think about that. But this is how I actually create. I persist to the database one spaceship named Pyramid. The description is Pyramid, fuel percentage 99%, max speed 88.88, and it's a double. And then we are saving a captain after that, so I'm creating my captain after that. I am again using the builder. Then I say the name of the captain should be Mike. The biographer is nice guy. And then we have the ship, and this needs to be the entity from the saved entity that we have from here. And then I say build, and then we actually get a captain that actually has an ID. The ship ID will actually be set to Pyramid's ID. That is quite cool. Then I call some flush right here. That's not necessary, so I'll just delete that. I had some other issues that I tried to solve, and then we're just logging something out, so we can actually see that it actually happened in the log. Now let us just try to press play now, because then we can actually see that the code is being run and that the application actually works. Done creating default rows. This is right here. And there's something we haven't talked about. That's how to set up the settings for H2. First of all, when you are playing around with stuff, then enable the H2 console, and also if you want some security on, so none of your colleagues will troll you and connect to your database and insert some data by mistake, then you can add this one, web allow others. This means you can only reach it from local hosts, the H2 console right here. This is important right here, data source URL. I think you should set this, because then you are not in doubt of what you should actually use if you want to connect to the database. And this is the username and password. You could also leave them. You could also set something else that's a bit easier to write. This is the name of the class, and yeah, that's it. So I'll definitely set this up, even though that it's actually mostly default values except for the space. The space in the data source. That means that the database will actually be named space. Okay, so that's it. Now I can go to a console. I actually already have the console up and running right here. Then we just refresh once. Oh, so when you go to H2, if you go to your local host and then the port where your server is running right now, it's 8080 on my machine. Then H2 console, that is what I set my H2 console to. Then I can go to that page, and here I can put in my JDBC URL, my username, and my password, which is password. And then I can press connect, and then I can see everything I have inside my database. Right now I have a standard captain and I have a standard spaceship. And here you can actually see that it converts camel case into snake case. It has used underscores instead of the camel case. So here we have, this is the captain. Here we have bio, name, and then it has a ship ID of 1. So it works. We are quite happy. Of course, we could have created a cool Spring Boot test that actually also proves that it works. And you should, of course. But I just want to, sometimes if you want to demonstrate something, then it is easier to just to see the result than watching a result from a Spring Boot test. And this is my standard ship. This is my ship, and as you can see on the ship, there's no field that points to the captain. That is quite awesome. So let us create that test that I talked about, because how it will actually work when you start playing around with these with these objects. Actually, first of all, I've already created some rest controllers. One for the captain, one for the spaceship. Let us try to trigger the endpoint for the captain, and the endpoint, it actually just returns all of the captains that we have in the database. We know that we only have one, so that's okay. You can, of course, you can go to a browser and then you can write localhost 8080, and then you go to standard captain and then a /end. Then, of course, you would also get the result. But there's actually something built into IntelliJ, and of course there's also something like Postman. There's almost always a HTTP client built into your ID. In VS Code, there's also one. It's called something Thunder, something. But there's always a HTTP client, so you can use the built-in one. And then here we can create a request, and then we can say port 8080. And then we can say standard, and look here, you actually get code completion for your endpoints. So this means that I can actually just write, okay, let's start with the spaceship actually. So we'll go to the spaceship. I will actually run this. I'll press play, and then we'll see the result in the console right here. Here we get, not found. Oh, I've not started my server. Oh, I started so, what did I say, a standard? Oh. Why didn't it say spaceship right here? Okay, I didn't press enter, maybe that's why. I'll press play again. Now we can see right here, then this is an array of all of the spaceships, and we only get the pyramid out because we only have one, but we do not have a representation of the captain right here, and that is because we added JSON ignore on the captain field to avoid the infinite loop. Instead of spaceship right here, let us try to write captain like this, and let us see what kind of result we then get. So look what happens now. Now we get the ID of the captain, name Mike, bio nice guy, and then we also get the ship. So now we get the ship embedded also, and that is because there's no JSON ignore on the captain side. On top of the ship, so it's enough that we break the infinite loop one place at if you will. So here we have the ship. So we have the ship right here. Description pyramids, ID 1, fuel 99, max speed 88.88. Yeah. If you want to create a test, then you just go to the end of your controller. When you create tests, if you can, create them on the highest possible level. Do not, I shouldn't say do not. Of course, if you have any problems with some of your queries and your REST repositories, then you should, of course, create a REST repository test and then find the bug. But let us say that you want to create a test that actually tests the whole flow, then do it on the controller level. So like this. I just pressed Alt-Enter when I stood after the class, and then I will actually get a test that is located in the exact same package as the class where I pressed Alt-Enter in the end of. So Spring Boot, no, not application, Spring Boot test. Thank you very much. And then we need to say active profiles. Here we can put in the active profile. Right now it's just default. We do not need this line right now, but yeah. But if you run your test with a certain profile, and of course add that profile like that. Or here we can auto-wire some stuff. Auto-wired Standard captain rest controller like this. Rest controller. This is the only place where you can actually use an auto-write annotation that is in the tests, in your test code. You cannot auto-write stuff into the real code. That's bad practice. You should use constructor injection instead. And that is done with the required Akyurt constructor, and then scoping your properties with private final. Yeah, and making them final. Yeah. So the rest control like this, .all, so that means now we get a list. And then we can create a good test is not a test without assertions, right? So we need to create some assertions. And we can see this is JUnit 5 because it says Jupiter. Jupiter is the 5th planet from in the solar system. That is why they use that package name there. And then we say assert equals, and then we say we expect that we have one. And this is actually not a very robust. Instead of expecting one, then we should actually assert true instead of something like that. Assert true. Size greater than 0, because if I suddenly start adding more spaceships or more captains, sorry, if I add more captains, then this test will break. But now it's actually quite generic, and it will not break. And another assertion I could do: assertions assert not null is a good assertion. Then I can say all.get the first one, and I can say I can also get all of them, but then I can say get ship. My spaceship should not be null. And I could duplicate this, and then I can say that the description should not be null either. So like this, let us just see what actually happens now. Just for fun, then we can actually try to print out the all.get 0. We can actually also print all of them out. That actually looks a little bit better. So we can say for each, and we can say system out print lines. So this is a method reference that we use right here on Lambda. If you don't know about that, then watch the video about Lambdas. And now we can run the test like this. So this just means that it will print out all of the objects. Let us see what happens now. Yes, it's a screen. That is a good sign, and we get the to-string representation. And there are no infinite loops, or else we would have had an error instead. So I'm actually quite happy. It's a very good test that I have right here. I'm happy. This was it for this time. But in the next video, I will show you how to put this together with the where we actually have the same ID, where we have a two-way direction. So we actually have the same ID on captain and on spaceship, because we know that it's one-to-one. This is not the standard way to create this relation, and but I'll save that for the next video. I'll just say thank you very much for watching, and thank you for all the nice comments that you give me on the channel. It's awesome to read them, and yeah, hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.